Rightio. And welcome back. As the night fails us, we're going to squeak in just one more. We've got a couple of self-disclaimed sour beers this time. So, it's going to be a proper consumer advice one this time, because whenever I see a sour beer on the shelf, I always go, and I think very hard before I actually buy it, because some sour beers are awful.
Now, let's take care of this one, because I'm a moron and an arse.
Yes.
I dropped it on the way out here.
Why would you do that?
Beer. I don't know, I was carrying 3 glasses and 2 beers. Something had to give.
No.
In this case, it was Moa's Sour Blanc.
Bottle-conditioned beer, Belgian lambic, otherwise known as the perfect storm.
Yes.
So, we'll see.
Point away from fragile objects, small children.
Happily, we're in the garage, and none of us are wearing
That's aimed
particularly
right in the microphone.
good clothing. Well, won't that be exciting if that happens?
So far,
So good.
just shoot it that way.
Shoot this way, alright.
Get some action shots.
Ooh.
Hey.
Well, that was highly exciting for me, but otherwise pretty tame.
Hey, come on.
Pretty
Come
tame.
on.
So, this is, I should stop talking about explosions. This is Moe's Sour Blanc. So, it's a Belgian lambic. So, not Sauvignon Blanc as I first thought. That has been done, and thankfully they've stopped doing it, because I didn't think it was a worthwhile trend. This was simply Blanc, and it is a white beer. It's a wheat.
Yeah. I assume it's based on their standard Moa Blanc.
I believe it probably is. It's a good place to
Make
start.
it go sour.
Good place to start. So,
Unusual 375ml bottle.
Yeah.
well, that's just Moa trying to be their little boutique.
I found a historic cork from one of these today while I was cleaning the gutters.
Yes. Funny how they end up in there on
One
occasion.
we have launched into the stratosphere on a previous occasion.
Yeah, one with some earthworms.
So, no, how the earthworms got in my gutters, I really don't know. But anyway, never mind. So, lambic, which means it has been fermented with very, very strange yeast.
A natural wild yeast and selected bacteria.
Selected bacteria, by which they mean acetobacter. So we are dealing with a, as I say, a self-stated sour beer. At least it says, unlike the Rum Barrel Quad, which is a stealth sour beer, which I'm sure
kind of
has
sour beer.
ruined many a day of beer enthusiasts, because that does its very best to sound like a very sweet and rich beer, and it is far from it.
Though interestingly, we do have here a selected bacterium, singular. There is only one.
Who got it?
I don't
See
know.
if we can pick it.
It's a very cloudy character, but because I dropped it because I'm an asshole.
Well, it's a wheat beer to begin with, so one would expect a degree,
It's just
cloudy.
cloudy.
Of cloud.
I think it needs to be there. It's not bitties. It's just cloud. Which is
The
cool.
smell
Opacity.
is pretty true to lambic. If you've smelt a lambic, then you will never forget what a lambic smells like. Similarly, the taste. I believe it was Richard Emerson who introduced me to my first lambic, and it was an experience. That was for sure. That one was actually from Belgium. This one obviously is a domestic lambic, but anyway, let's
There's a
let's
hint
see.
of vinegar on the nose, bit of balsamic vinegar, maybe some caramelized onions. Possibly not the onions
Ooh,
so much.
dear.
But
There's actually, now you say onions, I just had a drink, and there's a hint of pickled onions on the back of that.
crikey.
In the mouth.
That's yes.
Oh,
Not-
that's tangy. That is positively grapefruity.
Not
Wow.
the onions, but
But the juice.
the juice they
Yeah,
come in. Yeah, there's a significant amount of vinegar, and that's what acetobacter produces. That is the bacteria by which beer
acid.
goes bad and turns into malt vinegar. So which is an acid. So that's what we're tasting, and that's pretty unabashedly sour. Actually, that's.
I feel like this should be on a plate of chips or something. That's very vinegary.
Because I find
Not
when
in a
I
bad
take
way.
a drink, it goes in my mouth, and it's like, yeah, it's a beer. And then I swallow it, and it goes like,
Surprise,
"Whoa,
vinegar, Bofo.
acid."
You see, we taste acid with different parts of the tongue than we're used to tasting beers. In most beers, there is no sour component, so the sides, the edges of the tongue, which taste acid compounds, gets rest. It's not even
didn't
used.
they debunk that a few years ago that different bits of the tongue taste different things?
No.
I thought the taste senses were distributed evenly.
As far as I know, it's still somewhat the case that you taste different things in different areas of the tongue. Sweet on the front, bitter at the back, and sour on the sides. Which thinking back to tasting things, I can agree with. That seems fairly legit. But you're not used to tasting sour tastes in beers, and so just the first sort of few milliseconds of drinking it, it's quite crisp and fresh and beery, but it rapidly, the experience takes a pretty steep turn there and turns into...
You know what I'm getting, which is surprising me, is a flavour of a very strong and slightly matured apple cider. Have you ever had quite an old cider made with slightly older apples?
Yeah.
Sort of a classic English style cider, but strong. But slightly fruit acid.
I think
a little bit sharp, very slightly vinegary.
What you're getting there is that cider was probably, like this one, made from wild yeasts.
Yeah.
Because it's almost impossible not to make cider with wild yeast, because when you take in a fruit, and cider, of course, not being boiled, everything comes in with the apples. And apple skin is completely coated with natural yeasts, so there's always going to be a bit of wild ferment going on. So that's where the cider connection will be. I think, as a sour beer, this is actually quite good, but it is 100% a sour beer. You really need food if you're going to have a whole one of these. These sort of little pours that we've got, that's all right. We can survive that, but sour beer as something to just sit down and drink, that's a pretty tough prospect there.
Yeah, we're having a third of a bottle each, and it's a small bottle. What's the alcohol strength?
This was
around 6 mark.
This was 6.4 on this one.
There's still not much. That's a good serving of a beer of this strength and this intensity of flavour.
Yeah.
Any more than this, you'd be on a bit of a mission.
Because it's not that it's unrefreshing. It is, in its own way, very refreshing because it tips the palate on its end. It suplexes it into the ground. It really, really does a number on your taste buds, and so it's cleansing in its own way. It's just the flavour that it replaces it with is far from neutral, like a crisp beer, like a lager or something like that. It replaces it with the most extreme flavour you can imagine. So,
imagine you've had a little bag of sherbet, but it's sherbet flavoured like that really intense sour apple sweets.
Yeah,
it's the same kind of. It's fizzy, it's sweet, but it is really sharp, and it lets you know it.
Oh dear! No, you plate of food, and then you're away. Difficult on its own, but manageable wee pours here, so that's not such a problem.
Probably
but,
steer clear of the pickled onions, the fish and chips and vinegar.
Oh no! Don't
no
have it.
Food, no vinegar.
Don't have it with an acid food. Have it with
no
a
Greek salad.
Fatty food.
Creamy cheese.
Yes.
Have this with nice soft cheese. The meltier the better. So nice, mature brie. Washed rind would be absolutely perfect with this. Nice footy cheese, and things with lots of fat. So a big plate of chips. Something that acid can cut through and really provide a culinary kind of experience. That would be where you want to drink this beer.
I have a packet of blue brie in the fridge. We should probably dive into that once we're finished here.
Yes, we should. Anyway, what we should dive into is the next one.
Yes.
And we will do that forthwith. Right, on to the next. And this one might be a bit more...
It looks a bit red.
Problematic. This one is a cherry sour. And so... I'm not well versed, I'll be the first to admit, on cherry sours. The few that I have tasted a bit like Dr. Pepper and have been a bit frightening.
Hey!
However, we will see how this one goes. These have been remarkably well behaved. These are the carbonation on these is quite excellent for a bottle conditioned beer. That's quite precise. So let's see. Whole cherries. Oh dear.
Oh,
dear.
Cherry stones, whole
That's
cherries,
raro.
some actual fruit going on there. Also some Brettanomyces.
I thought I could see that in the bottle.
Goodness
as far as
gracious.
yeast is concerned.
It's going to be an ultimate battle for Dave then.
It's a lambic, all right. This is This is full pink right here.
Fruit coloured.
That would be, I assume, the cherries. This
Yes.
has spent a lot of time in contact with the stones, the skins, and the whole fruit.
The stones is the problem for me because cherry
barrel as
stones have that. Would it be uncharitable to call it cyanide flavour?
Almond flavour.
Yeah.
Tastes like death.
It has that flavour of marzipan, which kind of rings to me of cherry Coke and Dr. Pepper, if you're familiar. Things like that. However, the smell doesn't remind me of that, so that might be
There's
okay.
only a gentle Britannomyces, a bit of old shoes or something.
I actually kind of love the colour.
It is a gorgeous shade
It's
of
very
grapefruity
cloudy,
pink.
but it is a really, really kind of nice, warm,
Orangey
It's
red.
got a ruby
warm
red grapefruit colour.
amber
Yeah,
pink.
actually like
yeah,
a blood
yeah.
orange grapefruit.
Yeah.
And the head has a real subtle rosé pinkness to it, which is quite touching.
It's very opaque. If there's lots of videos happening, which the
This
bottle
was
conditioned carbonation.
bottle conditioned, and we could have probably been a bit more gentle with it, but never mind. At least we didn't drop it like the first one.
So gentle Britannomyces on the nose, which is how I like my Britannomyces, which is usually not at all, but a little I can deal with.
It does have the Britannomyces sort of just teeth on the nose. It's just got that little bit of bite. And then there's quite a lot of cherries, and that's sort of the end of it on the nose. There's a few savoury characteristics, and then quite a big whack of Acetobacter, but
It's
otherwise not too much trouble. Let's see.
Sparkly mouthfeel.
that's vibrant and prickly. That's really happening.
Not really sour though.
It's
Maybe
less-
just because we're following
it's-
up
well,
the
I'm
last one.
tasting more grapefruit than cherries.
it's much less sour than the Blanc.
Oh wait,
Before
the
it.
sour happens afterward. When your mouth is almost dry, it's almost all
Oh
gone.
no! Make no mistake. This is a sour beer. It's simply coming off the Blanc that we're sort of
Yeah.
we're a bit saturated with sourness that it
Acclimatised
doesn't taste like.
slightly.
But this is a very, very, very weighty texture to this one. It's extremely heavy.
Oh, that's a surprise. At first, I thought the remarkable 8-wired, hop-wired Unchained was going to be possibly the only Britannomyces beer I would truly enjoy. Even though it slightly defeated me at Marchfest, I did very much like it. But this is a Britannomyces beer.
It's
This
not-
is a
not
beer
too
I
heavy
like.
on it though, is it?
Wow.
The palate is weighty, but the beer is
I think
fairly.
the fruit is maybe
It's
Yes.
fairly
hiding the brick slightly.
crisp. Only 5.9, so it's less percent than the other one. I'd say it's probably kind of an acquired taste. I don't think I really like it. I think if I'm having sour beers, I want them to go the whole way. I'll say this: if there was some nice soft cheese to go with this, which the bottle, to its credit, does recommend, I think this would come together. I think on its own, I'm having real trouble bringing it together, coming to grips with what's going on here. There's just a bit too much.
It's a bit funny, isn't it?
I can taste the fruitiness. I can't taste cherries distinctly. That must be a good thing. I mean, it shouldn't taste just of cherries.
Because what this is, in the other one, they're both fully dry beers, so there's no sugar in here to taste, and so cherries being an intrinsically sweet thing, remove that sweetness,
There's
and
not much left.
then think what would cherries taste like if they weren't sweet, and that is what we've got here.
It's a dry,
completely
concentrated
different
fruit-
flavour.
fruitiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you imagine eating a grape, it's when you remove all of the sugar from that sweet grape taste that you get wine, which is a completely different flavour from a fresh grape. That's what you get here when you make beer out of a fruit and brew it dry. You get memories,
Sucks that sugar out.
memories of what that fruit was, but a completely different expression of the flavour without that sugar there. I think I'm definitely more of a fan of the Blanc, which we tried previously, than this one, because that was just a little bit lighter, a little bit more kind of airy, sparkly kind of a thing than this one. This one is just it's a bit dark and dank for me, I think. There's probably just too much time on
It's a
those
bit
dark
raro,
cherry
I'm
skins.
finding.
It's
Raro.
reminded of
Sort of. Not the exact
dear.
flavour of raro, but
Charlie's
just that
blood
kinda-
orange soda. Could just be the colour that's doing it, the carbonation, but those characteristics alone make me think of that particular. It's a very sweet, dry soda, but I like it. It has
been more than a decade since I've had Raro, but I'm not sure. There's a certain
just like a cordial drink, it's not full on fruits, but there's sort of like some fruity sweetness in there.
Yeah.
No, I'll say, give me a good piece of cheese, and I'll make this one work. As it is, I'm having trouble reconciling it.
I've enjoyed them both. This has been a pair of really unique beers. Going into it, I thought I was possibly going to just really not be on board with either. I thought I could possibly despise both of them. But I thought I'd brave it anyway, and hope for interesting things to happen, and interesting things have happened, and I like them both.
So, I'd say know what you're getting in for. They say sour beers, and they absolutely mean sour beers. And they don't mean sour as in sherbet or as in a tangy apple or anything like that. They're sour like lambic is sour, and that's really its own thing. It's a vinegar sourness. It's not a candy sourness. They're not sweet and sour. They're sour and sour. So know that full well before you go and buy them. But as expressions of their type, as lambics, they are actually very good.
They're really nice.
But that said, lambic is a very acquired taste.
Yes.
So I'd say go and get them. Go and give them a try, because they're not exactly a massive investment. They're small bottles. And
they're cool labels. They're nice and sparkly.
if you don't like them, then never mind. But I think they'll be much easier to get than a Belgian lambic. I'll probably start with the Blanc. The Blanc is, I think, very, very true to style for the lambic, and I think it's a very, very good one. This, I think, there's more going on here, which I'm not on board with, but the Blanc particularly, really, really good introduction of what a sour lambic is. And if you like it, then there's a particularly dark hole you can go down of Belgian lambics with some further research, and you'll find there's more out there than you thought. But
to be fair, I have had Belgian lambics before. I found them basically undrinkable. Not that they were bad beers and badly made, but I could not palate them, could not stomach them. This Sour Blanc, though, I've enjoyed it, I've embraced it, I'm really on board with it. So maybe an introduction to lambic, sure, it can be a good place to start, but for me, it is a world of difference from what I'm used to from other lambics I've tried.
I've had some excellent sort of fruity lambics from Belgium.
Fruit lambics, full fruit lambics,
Yeah.
can be very different, because often they are sweet. When you get peach lambics, cherry lambics, Kriekeboen
Yeah.
being a common one, and Framboise being another.
They do some good ones for sure.
Nice Flemish, French influenced lambics. They are sweet, they are not sour, and so those ones are different. Different and a bit more accessible. I am being told that I have to go to a family dinner, so we're going to wrap this one.
Let us know what you think of lambics.
However,
Yes.
if you do try these, do comment, because I think other people would really benefit from knowing what the average beer consumer really thinks of these sour beers, because they're undiscovered country, really, in New Zealand. So
And the 375ml bottle is a unique size, but it's a great way to try a bottle conditioned beer in a size that's compact
It's
enough
a
to make it
doable
very
size.
good value for money. These are excellent value, and you get a decent size serving, but you're not overwhelmed with a giant half-litre flagon of something you may not like. You can try it, you can savour it, you can share it, and you can really experience a bottle conditioned beer in an accessible quantity.
at any rate, the comedically enlarged shepherd's crook is coming to yank me off stage. So this has been the Sesh. I hope you found this useful. Sour beers, not as frightening as they may sound. Do have a look. And otherwise, check back and we'll have something new for you very soon. This has
See you
been the
next
Sesh.
time.